Then came the day that tested everything she had learned about herself and their bond. Victor had planned a small trip to the countryside, a break from the routine, a chance to step outside the confines of city scrutiny. Lena packed a simple bag, dressed casually, her heart fluttering with excitement and apprehension. They drove along winding roads, sunlight filtering through trees, laughter filling spaces that had been quiet too long. Yet, beneath the surface, tension brewed. She noticed the slight pause in his words when he spoke about the future, the way he watched the road as if calculating every possible hazard. Something inside her stirred. Was it fear of loss, or the old instinct to guard her heart? She could not tell, but she knew one thing: every moment counted more than the money, the security, or the judgment of the outside world. It counted because it was real, because it was lived fully in the presence of someone she had grown to care for deeply. At the cabin, the first evening was quiet. They cooked dinner together, chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, arranging plates with meticulous care. Lena caught herself smiling more freely, noticing how Victor moved in the kitchen, the gentle way he adjusted the heat, the soft hum of a tune she had never heard but grew to love. They spoke of nothing and everything, small talk that felt monumental. Laughter shared over burnt edges of bread, accidental spills, and playful scolding. Outside, the wind carried the scent of pine, crisp and clean, a reminder of life beyond city noise and judgment. The stars emerged as darkness fell, and for the first time in months, Lena felt a sense of peace, untainted by obligation or survival. Morning brought unexpected challenges. Victor slipped while fetching wood for the fireplace, an innocuous accident that caused a minor injury but sent Lena into a state of panic. She rushed to his side, checking for cuts, pressing towels against small abrasions, her heart hammering with fear she could not easily articulate. Victor reassured her, his calm voice steadying her rising anxiety, and she realized that this was the true test: care without expectation, presence without reward. She discovered her own capacity for selflessness, patience, and courage. The trip that had begun as a temporary escape became a microcosm of their life together, a space where love, trust, and character revealed themselves not in grand gestures but in small, deliberate actions. By the time they returned to the city, Lena had transformed internally. She no longer feared gossip or judgment. The experience had taught her that true intimacy, genuine connection, and human trust cannot be measured by wealth, appearances, or public perception. In quiet moments at home, she found herself observing Victor not for what he could provide, but for the nuances of his humanity, the lines of his hands, the way he tilted his head when listening, the small acts of consideration that had never required acknowledgement. She realized that she loved him not because of contracts or security, but because she had come to see the strength, vulnerability, and constancy that defined him. People always say you can hear judgment before you see it. I heard it the day Lena walked down the courthouse steps beside Victor, cameras flashing, whispers buzzing like flies. She wore a clean white dress, simple, almost plain, but everyone focused on his watch, his car, his age. He was rich. He was older. She was young, tired, and broke. The story wrote itself for anyone watching. She married him for money. I knew Lena before the headlines, before the comments, before strangers decided they understood her heart better than she did. I knew the way she counted coins at the grocery store, how she skipped meals so her younger brother could eat, how pride bent but never fully broke inside her. When she told me she was marrying Victor, she did not smile. She exhaled long and shaky, like someone stepping into cold water because standing still had become worse. Victor was not cruel. He was not charming either. He spoke softly, listened more than he talked, and moved with the careful pace of someone whose body had learned limits. People assumed he bought her. They did not see the contract he offered her first, written not on paper but in calm sentences. He would clear her debts. He would pay for her brother's schooling. He wanted companionship, honesty, and peace in the years he had left. Love was not promised. Respect was. Lena agreed because life had taught her that respect could be a kind of shelter. The wedding was small. No music that made hearts race. No kisses that made people sigh. Just two people signing papers while the room smelled of old wooden floor cleaner. When it was over, Lena felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because the fear of eviction and hunger loosened its grip. Heavier because she knew the price of this relief was being misunderstood by almost everyone she knew. On the drive to his house, a quiet place with tall trees and windows that caught the afternoon sun, she stared out and wondered how long it would take before the weight inside her chest settled into something she could live with. The first months were polite, almost distant. Victor gave her space, asked before touching her arm, knocked before entering rooms that were already hers. He cooked simple meals and cleaned as he went. At night, they sat across from each other, sometimes talking, sometimes sharing silence like a fragile truce. Lena waited for resentment to grow. It did not. Instead, something else appeared, something uncomfortable. Guilt. She noticed how he watched the garden every morning, as if checking that something he loved was still alive. She noticed the way his hands shook when he thought she was not looking. She noticed how he never asked her to perform gratitude. Rumors followed her everywhere. Friends stopped calling. Strangers felt entitled to stare. Online comments cut deeper than she expected. Gold digger, cold heart, fake wife. She read them late at night, phone glowing, stomach tight. Victor never asked about her tears, but he left tea by her door and small notes that said rest matters. She did not know when her defenses began to crack. Maybe it was the night he confessed he was afraid of dying alone. Maybe it was the afternoon he drove her to visit her brother and waited in the car, refusing to make the moment about himself. One morning, Lena realized she no longer saw him as a deal, but as a man who trusted her with loneliness at last. The change came slowly, almost imperceptibly. Like sunlight creeping under a door, Lena began to notice small things that Victor did not intend for her to see. The way he left his book open on the nightstand, the way he hummed softly while tending to the garden, the careful way he poured tea so it never spilled, even when no one was watching. She began to care not for his money, not for his status, but for the quiet dignity in how he lived his life. She started waking before him, moving silently through the kitchen to make breakfast, to leave the house in order before he even noticed. At first, it was habit. Later, it became something more. It became gratitude that was no longer transactional, affection that was no longer obligation. And in that subtle shift, their home changed from a shelter to a place that held warmth, a fragile but growing warmth that felt like hope. Friends and family still doubted her. They sent messages she ignored. They made assumptions that she refused to confirm. Lena realized that the world rarely sees the complexity behind choices. A marriage can appear shallow while holding depths no outsider can comprehend. Victor never asked her to defend herself. He never bragged about her sacrifices or the weight of her decisions. And that silence, at first uncomfortable, became a kind of testament to trust. He did not need proof that she cared. He believed it, and that belief slowly infiltrated her own heart. For the first time, Lena felt seen not as a woman who had to justify her choices, but as a human being capable of empathy, of courage, of growth. Then came the unexpected challenge. Victor's health, long stable, began to waver. A minor illness that lingered, tests that showed small but worrying results. Lena faced the possibility of losing him in ways she had not considered. Fear, once distant, now pressed against her chest. She found herself sitting by the window at night, hands pressed to her face. Realizing that money could not shield her from loss, she wanted to scream at the injustice of it, to rail against fate for putting her in a position where she could care so deeply and still feel powerless. But Victor never panicked. He smiled quietly and reminded her that the moments she shared with him were what mattered, not the years they could not predict. In that room, with the soft hum of the heater and the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air, Lena understood that love real, genuine care was not something she could buy or be given. It was something she learned to cultivate. Days turned into weeks. She accompanied him to appointments, learned how to administer medication, and discovered the patience it took to care for another human being without resentment. She was clumsy at first, dropping pills or misreading instructions, but Victor never scolded. He guided her with gentle words, small gestures, as if teaching her the value of attention and commitment. In the process, Lena discovered an unexpected resilience in herself, a courage that had lain dormant beneath the weight of necessity and survival. She realized that the world's judgment, the whispers that had followed her, had no power here. In this small, quiet space, she and Victor were inventing a life defined not by wealth or social expectations, but by the steady rhythm of mutual trust and respect. Then, the moment that would define the outside world's perception of their marriage arrived. Victor, feeling stronger after weeks of rest, invited Lena to a charity gala. The event was lavish, filled with the city's elite, people who had once whispered behind her back, assumed her motives, judged her appearance. Lena hesitated. The thought of facing them, of hearing the echoes of their assumptions, made her stomach knot. But she went and she walked beside Victor, not as a companion purchased, but as a partner who had grown into her role with quiet dignity. Whispers followed, eyes lingered, but something had changed. She no longer felt small. She carried herself with the understanding that wealth was a tool, not a measure of worth. Her confidence was not loud, but it radiated in the way she smiled, the way she responded to greetings, the calm in her posture. For the first time, people noticed her in a new way, not as a gold digger, but as a woman who had earned her place by showing patience, empathy, and courage under scrutiny. Asterisk, she had changed in ways no one outside the house could see. The subtle shift in her expression, the way her shoulders relaxed when she walked into the kitchen, the patience she exhibited when Victor misplaced something or when small accidents happened. These were quiet signs of a growing bond that no one on the street or online could understand. Every day, she woke a little earlier, prepared breakfast without being asked, and started noticing the things that brought him joy, the scent of fresh coffee, the angle of morning light across the floor, the rhythm of his favorite music playing softly in the background. She found herself laughing at his jokes, small smiles that built up in a bank of shared moments, unnoticed by outsiders but deeply meaningful to them. It was in these small, almost mundane interactions that the foundation of their relationship was quietly forming. Rumors still followed her. Gossip never sleeps. Text messages from old friends carried veiled judgment. "Are you sure you're happy?" one asked, knowing the world assumed she had married for money. Another comment online, brief and cruel, called her a gold digger. She read them, stomach twisting, before setting the phone aside. Victor never asked her to respond or explain. He simply trusted her intentions, and over time, that trust became a mirror reflecting the parts of herself she had buried in shame and necessity. She realized the world's opinion did not define her. The quiet acknowledgement in his gaze did. It was a dangerous freedom, one that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Asterisk.